the wise if your mama ain't taught you. Don't stand in front of a man and a fish he ain't caught yet. Honey, if the world calls me, tell him I'm fishing. I'm going fishing. Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Wouldn't you like to? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Wouldn't you like to know? I'm going fishing. Woo!
Hey everybody, welcome to the Kayak Fishing Show live. Brought to you by Bubbly Water. I'm not having a beer today. Wanted some water. But also, of course, because we're showing episodes, they're actually brought to you by our regular sponsors. You know, Seagar, such a great sponsor since the very, very beginning. Jackson Kayak. We're scrolling them all across the bottom here. Werner Paddles, Standard Horizon, Yak Attack, such a great one. And if you haven't seen what Yak Attack is doing for the community, you ought to check in with them and help them out. Siegler Reels, a band of anglers, Ray Marine, and of course, especially on this episode, Kokatat, because yes, I wasn't wearing a PFD for 90% of this one. Oh, tickle in my throat there. Excuse me. Not wearing a PFD for most of this, and straight up, we shipped our kayaks down there. We shipped everything down there, and the box of PFDs didn't arrive. I think we had one PFD between us, so we would move it around, and sometimes because none of us had one, we just figured write that thing off. So, but I'm a strong believer in PFD, so please always wear your PFD. So for this episode, unfortunately, we're still trying to get all of our old episodes downloaded. So, but because this is our Throwback Thursday to show some of our older stuff, we're going to be showing again a segment of our Game On DVD. This is actually from Game On 2. It came from when we shot Game On 1, released it. It did really good, and decided to shoot Game On 2. And right after we started shooting Game On 2, WFN, the World Fishing Network, asked us to turn it into a TV show. So what came from Game On 1 and Game On 2 ended up being season 1 of the Kayak Fishing Show on WFN. So what I've done here today is I just pulled one of the segments from Game On 2 to share with you today. And that segment is our very first trip to Panama. We went down there with Pesca Panama. Now, I've been to Panama about 5 times, I think now. We've been with Pesca Panama. We've been with Paddle Panama. We've been with Los Buzos. All of them great setups and a great time. But this was, we were some of the first people ever to kayak fish down in Panama. Definitely the first ones to ever put a kayak out on Hannibal Bank. It was exciting. We learned a lot. We've learned a lot since we started shooting the show. This was 12 years ago at least that we shot this one. It is in more of the style of the DVD. Again, it's not how we edited it for the TV show, which actually makes it a little more fun because doesn't have as much of a commercial element to it. Let's check in we got some viewers. Egowitz, my friend Egowitz in Spain. I hope you're doing well over there, all hunkered down and not getting into any trouble. I don't know what the situation is in Spain if you guys are able to fish, but Lost Horizon Fishing. I've been waiting all day, I'm assuming is what you're saying. Watching on Kayak Fishing Tales. So again, if you're not aware, this is on Kayak Fishing Tales, our YouTube channel, as well as Facebook. Eric, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us. Liam, also watching on Kayak Fishing Tales. And Sean Russell, thanks for joining us over from Texas. The Lost Horizon Fishing. Is the La Jolla Shores kayak launch spot closed? Yes, it is. There's basically no fishing in San Diego. All the boat launches are closed. All the beaches are closed. You can't do anything. You're pretty much on lockdown. Actually, Paul knows a lot about this stuff because he is the editor of Western Outdoor News and been involved in a lot of conversations on that subject. So maybe we can ask him some more once we bring Paul up. Richard Martin, shout out to Paul Lebowitz from Richard. Thanks for all the support you gave us on the MLPAs. Boy, that seems like a lifetime ago now. And Dwayne from Canada, how you doing, man? So with no further ado, let's bring up my guest on this shoot and a longtime friend. And as I said, the editor of Western Outdoor News. Before that, the editor of Kayak Fish Magazine, worked for Kayak Angler Magazine, been a driving force in the promotion of kayak fishing for a very long time now. And we brought him on the shoot with us all those years ago. So my good friend, Paul Lebowitz. How are you, Pablo?
Doing good, considering.
Yeah, I see you're working from home.
I'm working from home. We've been still putting a paper out. It's a little crazy with everybody scattered throughout Southern California, but it's a taste of normalcy. We get it out there and give the people something interesting to read, maybe a little bit of knowledge, and they can at least bring the outdoors indoors.
Well, how are you doing that when we aren't allowed to go fishing? What are you reporting on? I mean, are there areas where people are still fishing?
There are some areas in Northern California. I'm not going to get into the specifics lest I spoil it for the people who are out there. Because you know what happens. You publicize someplace and then the crowds show up and then it closes. Yeah,
exactly. With this such a limited access. What about hunting? I mean, you guys cover hunting in the magazine as well.
Yeah, the hunting seasons are fine.
Oh, really?
Deer season will be coming up. It's turkey season now. And there's no problem with social distancing when hunting. I mean, it's a pretty solitary deal.
Yeah, well, that's good. At least you got something going on. And, hopefully we have stuff to look forward to and can just keep charging along. But with no further ado, that's not what this show is about. This show is about our Throwback Thursday, back to old episodes, kind of what I was calling the ocean kayak years. Back when I was paddling for Ocean Kayak, and this was the second season of shooting the DVD, and we invited you to come on down to Panama many, many years ago. What is probably, I mean, I know you haven't watched this in a really long time, nor have I, but what memory from back then about this episode kind of still stands out to you?
A number of things. It was indelible, man. First off was you pinned on a fish seemingly for 4 or 5 hours as we watched you suffer.
I did suffer. It was 3.5 hours, I believe, but it probably felt like 5, especially if you had to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anybody is, saw the link for this thing, it shows a picture of an explosion next to my kayak. Paul took that photo, and that'll be in this video of a big yellowfin tuna that I was doing battle with.
Yeah, it was one of the largest fish ever dealt with on a kayak at the time. Right.
And, of course, like I said, learned so much since then. And I mean, I fight these same fish. And I was talking to Jameson last week that, that same fish, we're landing fish that size now in 30 minutes because we've changed up our equipment and fight them a little bit differently. So, yeah, I mean, that fish, that first time killed me. I remember getting out of that kayak and getting up on the boat, and I could barely stand up straight.
Yeah, the other thing I remember, Jim, is all those sneaker waves out on the reefs where you really had to have eyes in the back of your head or one of these things might munch you.
Right. And fishing in those areas was so much fun, so much fun. You know, like I said, that wild water and all that is where I really love to fish. So with no further ado, Paul, let's bring up the video. If people have questions, we'll bring them up and pause and answer any questions. Other than that, let's just sit back and enjoy this for a few minutes, and we'll like I said, we'll pause every so often to answer any questions or just a comment, or if anything looks cool, maybe replay it. So I hope you enjoy this. This is, like I said, this was from season 1 of the Kayak Fishing Show on World Fishing Network. And this is Fishing in Panama with Pesca Panama.
Adventure.
Under the sun.
Although it was recently named a UNESCO World Heritage Site, until 2004, Panama's Coiba Island hosted a large penal colony that was completely off limits to any and all outsiders. Jim's mission is to join Pesca Panama to investigate the remote and secretive island and to explore what is considered by many to be some of the most fertile fishing grounds in the world.
We are in Panama, fishing with Pesca Panama, our good friends. They have a floating lodge that we've been staying at. And basically what we do is they move the floating lodge from spot to spot, and then we run out here on these very, very nice boats and take the kayaks from spot to spot. There's a lot of different really, really cool islands. Fishing around those islands was so cool.
Yeah, this trip was the highlight of my kayak fishing career to this day. It's fun to see this again.
Yeah, and being on Pesca Panama, not being locked into one position, fishing different areas every day. Fishing some pretty sketchy areas, a lot of boiler rocks, a lot of moving water, and got some great rooster fishing in yesterday.
I've ever gone kayak fishing. I've gone kayak fishing a lot of places. This place is so fishy. The water's lively. And we've been going into some danger close situations. It's about as adrenalized as you can get when you hook up on a jack.
Fished hard all day. Fished again around a lot of islands. And very surgy area. It's a little different from what I'm used to fishing rooster fish. In Baja, we fish along a lot of sandy beaches. Here we're fishing along these steeper islands. Again, a lot of surge, a lot of water movement, but that seemed to be where the fish were biting the best. Caught quite a few really good quality rooster fish, one Cubera snapper. So overall, for our first day here, and just still trying to figure the whole situation out, it was a very, very good day.
Really, my goal was to get some more rooster fish. There's such a great fight. And right off the bat, first day, got into about 5 rooster fish, and I landed successfully 2 of them, but they were all just a great fight. And they also seem to hang out
kind of a weird editing job was that from Will.
Just rolling in.
He did slice and dice a bit.
Almost you're half battling the waves and half battling the fish.
It's funny, the world champion kayaker there mentioning that you had to battle the waves. So it wasn't just our imagination.
No, and for people who are wondering, that was Ken Whiting, former world champion whitewater kayaker. He is also the producer of my show. but they are in Ottawa, Canada. Before this trip, you know, he did come down on a Baja trip with me, but definitely not experienced with big game fishing. Most of his experience would be catching bass or pike up in Canada. So, and definitely not used to the heat. I remember he was darn near heat stroking on the trip. He was so hot.
Yeah, he wasn't the only one. I think Will had trouble capturing just how sketchy it was because he couldn't take the cameras into some of the areas where we were hooking these fish.
Yeah, I remember they had that one kayak. We called it the banana boat. It was this big yellow, what would definitely be considered like a resort boat. Definitely not made for being in those areas. And they did paddle in there on that one day. And we have the kind of closer in areas as we're fishing. But we'll get up to that. This is the snook hole. That was kind of an interesting one. They go, okay, we're going to take you to the snook hole. We always catch snook there. And whenever you hear that, it's like, yeah, okay, sure. You know, and it immediately paid off. So let's get that rolling. The snook hole.
Could have been called the variety hole too.
Hey,
Yeah, there was a bunch of jacks there too.
Coiba Island came over to a spot what was called the snook hole, and it held true to that name because I think Paul was about 3 casts into it and got himself a nice snook.
Tied to the world with a skinny telephone wire.
It's so close to the beach too.
I won't call. We'll hang Father Time as the cause of it all. The cars on the freeway look like ants in a row. The hustle and the bustle and the go, go, go. We're all just dogs locked inside a cage. Freedom only goes as far as the length of your chain.
Not a monster.
And a little bit later, I got one, and then Paul got another one.
Yeah, but look where I am, all the way inside there to get this fish. I mean, so much, and it's pouring with rain.
Yes!
That's a better one.
What I wanted to catch too, man. It's definitely on my list of fish I wanted to catch here. What a beautiful fish.
Oh, third cast in that little sliver of beach, right on the beach, and jumping. 2 snook and got into the jacks. I mean, that's the interesting thing to me. The snooks and the jacks are intermingled right around those rocks where the bait was popping off. You just didn't know what you might catch.
Folks in the State Bank put Bible in a gold-plated pew. They see Jesus' face on $100 bill. The size of their wallet, that's the size of their soul.
Hey, you remember the monkeys?
Oh yeah, howler monkeys screaming at us as we're catching fish.
Got a jack, some snapper, just very, very cool. Very, very fun fishery over in the snook hole. I paddled out, saw some breaking fish, and got a really good jack on my bass gear, which was just a good fight. I mean, catching 12-pound jack revolve, and we call them toro. They were bull, they were so tough, and on the bass gear was amazing.
This is my spotted bay bass rod. I usually catch 1 or 2 pound fish on this thing. And jack, or we call them toro down in Baja, are notoriously tough, and this guy just put up a heck of a fight. Man, what a good fight on that light gear.
We're hunting crocodiles.
I forgot about this part.
And give that a try, see if there was some fish in there. And saw a few crocs earlier on, and they were not big, and they were just out in the creek. And it's always in my mind. It's like, okay, the crocs. It's all everybody talked about. But I don't know, 15, 20 feet in front of me, a croc came flying off the side right in front of me. Splashes in the water, and in a flash, the thing is gone. It was amazing how fast that thing moved.
That thing was big, and it disappeared into just inches of water.
Yeah, for people who don't realize, I mean, there are some big big saltwater crocs down there. And as we said, this was kind of a tidal river, and we paddle up it, and it got to very, very narrow. And we'd seen some small ones up at the entrance, and which are a little unnerving when you've never paddled around them before. But then that one, in my head, it literally was like flying off the bank at me. It came off going away from me. But that croc, I mean, it was a good size animal, just launched off the bank, hit the water, and disappeared. I mean, the water was like this deep, it's like, that was the sketchiest thing about it. Is like, I could be paddling along in this much water and have an animal that big underneath me. So, hence you saw our quick exit. May have been playing it up a little bit for the camera, but it sure was funny. Is Will missed the shot. He didn't, but you heard it. So that was actually the true sound of it coming off the bank in front of us, and like, whoa. That was very cool. So now we're moving on to, like I said, the cool thing about Pesca Panama, this lodge basically would move every day. So it's set up, you'd sleep on it in a cove or something, and then you'd go out fishing. And while you were fishing, it moved to another island, another location, whatever, and then you would meet up with it later in the day. So you got to fish all these different areas, which you never got an area super dialed in, but you got to explore so many different places, right?
Oh my gosh, yes, it was fantastic. But the scenery was ever changing. The fisheries were just everything you could want. Yeah, it was. I mean, the lodge didn't look like much, but the operation was fantastic.
Right. I mean, it was comfortable. It was air conditioning. You had the cocktails on the back of the boat and dinner and meals at the back of the boat every day. Their center consoles that moved us around every day were just awesome. Like you said, it was a very well-oiled machine. They've changed ownership since the last time we were there, so I'm not sure how they're running things nowadays. But like I said, a very, very cool trip. Dave Massaguel says Panama is a dream tip. Yeah, like I said, whether you go with them or Paddle Panama or Pesca Panama or Los Buzos, it's an awesome location. I love fishing in Panama. And like I said, people always ask me if I like Costa Rica or Panama better. I mean, I love the country of Costa Rica. It's so clean, and they're very passionate about their ecotourism and everything. But straight up, I've had better fishing trips to Panama than I ever had in Costa Rica. And I've had some great ones in Costa Rica, but I always give Panama a little bit of a nod. Barbara says, I've been getting a lot of emails saying that Panama is one of the best places in the world to retire to. So you're anxious to see what the fishing opportunities are. Well, as I just said, I mean, there's great fishing all over Panama, and whether it's inshore or offshore, it's a wonderful place, and it is, for an American, it's a very easy place to go to. Lost Horizon, how fun is that? Hooking into one of those rooster fish must be amazing. What braid floor combination did you use? Honestly, this was so many years ago, I don't know what I used on that trip, but now pretty much my go-to would be Seagar threadlock hollow core braid, and then anywhere for roosters, anywhere from 40 to 80 pound leader. They don't tend to run into rocks on you, so you don't have to worry about too much of that. So it's more a matter of just if there are bigger fish around, move it up, just because their mouths are quite abrasive. Dave says beautiful scenery. Dave also asks, does that outfit still exist? Pesca Panama, I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure they still are in existence, although who knows with what's going on with everybody right now. So let's get this thing rolling. Watch the rest of this show. This is some of that crazy inside stuff we fished. That was so exciting. Catching all those blue trevally in there.
This was amazing. There's just no other way to describe it. The water was so lively.
I see it here. Those teeth.
Didn't those blue trevally have this spine under them you had to watch for?
Their tail was quite sharp.
I think you kissed the rock at one point.
We came pretty close. I had a wave almost get me.
Out every once in a while really gets your adrenaline pumping.
I mean, look at that.
My name is Tiger Lista. I'm a two-penny thief with beggar's eyes. Rolling to a sweet on fire, you say, can I break? Make my sing attack tonight.
A lot of those fish on the Sebile Magic Swim are hard.
Right. That was kind of my go-to lure. There it is.
Blue trevally. Good fish.
There was a bit of that hook a fish and then paddle backwards to drag it out.
That took you right in, dude.
Here, it's like you're slow trolling a live bait along a sheer cliff.
That's right. And when the fish runs into shore, there's nowhere to land. It's more like crash land.
Yeah, there's a lot more of that. Hold onto the rod and hold onto your paddle and direct yourself. Try to stay out of the dicey areas. And I think that's one of the things that made this trip so amazing. Was the extreme kayak fishing. I mean, it wasn't necessarily the extreme big fish. It was extreme fish.
It takes a tough fish to live in that neighborhood. You know, they're strong. To live in there, you got to be strong.
Since he was a child, Jim has dreamed of the famed Hannibal Banks. Of course, he's always been told that the fish here are just too big and the water's too exposed for kayak fishing. Jim's personal mission is to prove everyone wrong.
We are. So yeah, Hannibal Bank. You know, I don't. Like I said, as far as I know, we were the first people ever to kayak fish out there. I mean, it is famed for big tuna, big marlin, big black marlin. So, and we saw so many tuna, but they were moving so fast.
Yeah, I remember Ken and I looking at those backs of those fish, monstrous size fish, and looking at each other and shaking our heads, wondering how it was going to get done. But we'd find out.
Yeah. Yeah, that was I said it was a special place. It was so cool to be able to see that and be a part of it. And you know, like I said, what people maybe don't realize is so much of this stuff, like I said, this is old footage. And a lot of the stuff was people weren't doing this. You know, now you hear about guys catching marlin, sailfish on the East Coast all the time, tuna and all that, but there wasn't a whole lot of that going on when we first started doing it. So there was definitely a little bit more of the fear factor because it was untested. So let's see what we can pull off Hannibal Bank.
Are hanging out in pretty much one of the sickest spots that I've ever seen.
Paul, Ken, and I are each trolling these very large bonita that the guys jigged up for us this morning. Very strong bait.
That was crazy. Yeah, that was pell-mell. And on the popper.
On the popper, yeah. I've never caught a tuna on a popper. What an exciting way to get it, to see a tuna come out of the water and crash on a surface popper.
That was probably on the old Sebile Splasher. On a gaff that's way too long.
These are the tuna that were on those black porpoise, aren't they, Jim?
Yeah. Like I said, we were just trying to stay with the porpoise the whole time.
Panama rocks, dude. Panama freaking rocks.
And I thought that was a good one.
Those porpoise literally led Ken and I to where I hooked up.
Right.
We were going along in squadron formation, and they peeled off to the right. It's like, hey, the birds are going off. We could reach them this time.
When we came up on you as you were landing your fish, and you had all those porpoise still hanging with you while you were landing your fish. I mean,
They were checking it out.
what an incredible fish.
I remember that fish being on the side of you. It was like a motor and pushing you along.
Without
Yeah.
that popper or that live bait. You never
Those were minnows compared to what you ran into later.
The anticipation. Said I saw these birds working outside of where we were earlier, and I took a chase after them, picked up my paddling speed, and got hit and lost my bait. So I'm like, became intent on staying with these birds. Got a new bait, stayed with them, started paddling faster again. Right when I get out to the birds again, I got hit. And man, this is a strong fish. I don't know how big it is, but it's strong. I really think I pissed him off.
She said, don't call me darling.
It's a strong freaking fish, my friend.
Well, I got to give it a go. I got to try and land this fish on myself. So I got the gaff out, and I reached down, and I stuck him, and I hit him kind of up near the top of the head, which is generally where I like the gaff fish. But I hit him, and I think it was like I stuck my gaff in a piece of dynamite because it just blew up.
I have that still photo over my desk right here.
Hannibal Bank, Panama. 2.5 hours on a 500-pound tuna.
It sure felt that way.
Look at you going backwards there.
It's so weird. See, that's the thing is, like I said, at an hour and a half, I stuck the gaff in it, and I didn't land it for another 2 hours.
There he is, right there. He's coming up on your left. Nice.
Really wanted to get that fish. Really wanted to land it, and I just at that point I'm like, look,
Come on.
we're gonna have to land it on the boat. We're gonna have to have the guys on the boat gaff it. So I just kept at it, and finally got it circling around. Got it doing a big circle, and it came right by the side of the boat.
Basically, I mean, it started to get dark.
And it just blew up, and to the point where they actually had to put 2 gaffs in it. So, and that's at over 3 hours. The guys on the boat had to put 2 gaffs in it. So I know for a fact I could not have personally landed that fish for myself. So thank goodness they were there and we were able to get that fish up. And it's still a great kayak fight and great kayak catch. I did hook it from the kayak. I fought it from the kayak. I did my best to gaff it from the kayak, but we had to land it from the boat.
I bet you could get it now.
The way they fight so straight
Well,
up and
yeah,
down. Thank
and
God
we
I had
have.
that Tiagra 2-speed. That really helped me gain some line on it there at the end. But I'm worked over, man. I am worked over. I'm so excited, though. I mean, you know, my biggest tuna before this off the kayak, about 35 pounds. So I got it beat by almost 100 pounds.
No way I could have gaffed this. No freaking way.
Yeah, not after 3.5 hours. Not with my back. So there was I couldn't even stand
Tail
up.
still on the ground. Oh, man. The ass kicker.
The energy.
Right now, my plan's taking pictures.
Okay.
Later on, it's catch fish until my arms are noodles.
That's quality. See, that's a right foot.
Oh, this is actually the very end of the DVD. Because this is all stuff out. This is from Montana.
Still so much to do. Well, I guess I'll keep chasing my tail. If that's what I've got.
Will be in a goof.
Those were good times.
Oh, it was such a fun trip. And like you're saying, I could probably land it now. And I have. Like I said, we're landing tuna that were not quite that big, but, 100 plus pounds in Louisiana and whooping them in a half an hour. The difference being using smaller gear, more parabolic rods. So instead of that, that rod that I was fishing with was a freaking broomstick.
I remember.
So the leverage point being so far away from my body and with my bad back, I was worked. And, like I said, we're landing 100-pound tuna on the, my little Siegler, well, this one here, the little SGN. We're on that one. I'm like, thank God I had that 2-speed. But I think it's thank God I had the 2-speed at the end of the fight because I was so worked over after 3.5 hours. But now we just land them a lot faster and you don't take the butt kicking because with that broomstick of a rod, you just felt every beat of its tail. Very, very different. So definitely, like I said, 13 years later, you'd hope we learned a thing or two. I certainly did. But like you said, I don't know about you, Paul. For me, that was because that was the first trip to Panama, and such an amazing learning experience at all the different places we got to fish. That trip right there still it holds a real special place in my heart with all the places I've been, just because it was so amazing. We've got some great video of you demonstrating how to use your kayak rod pod in a special way. I don't know why it didn't make the DVD. Yeah, man.
Some things are better left imagined than actually seen. Yeah.
But yeah, man. Such an amazing place. So, anyway, did you enjoy reliving that, Paul?
I did. They forgot the Kubera. It's not in there. You didn't do the Kubera segment.
Is this the one where the Kubera bit me?
No, that was a different time. I remember that.
All right. So
yeah. I remember fishing in between 2 islands, and the tidal currents were just ripping. And I would hook up every drop, but I couldn't get them. And you finally got one.
Yeah. I said just so much different fishing. I remember, just like you said, throwing those hard magic swimmers up into the rocks at all these different places and just getting into blue trevally after blue trevally. And I mean, they're not big, like a lot of the other fish, but you were always catching them in those really dicey areas. So it just made it so much fun. Dave asks, so how would you catch that faster today? Again, what I was saying is you have a rod that's a little more parabolic, because there's just the equipment now, these rods are lightweight and they're strong. And like I said, just a little bit more parabolic. So you're getting that leverage point much closer to your body, so you can short stroke it, just do these 1-inch strokes, and you're always gaining line. Whereas when you have that long rod, you have to pick it up quite a ways to try and get some line on it. So it's a lot harder to short stroke with a long broomstick type of rod like that. And again, with the softer, more parabolic rod, you're not feeling every tail beat in your arms, So that is how we have learned to fight them faster and land them a lot faster. I said the Louisiana, there's some highlight videos on Kayak Fishing Tales from Louisiana where, like I said, we were landing them in about 30 minutes, and these were 100-pound fish. So a little bit different equipment. And I said, little tiny reels, as long as they're, like I said, these Sieglers, good smooth drags, real powerful drags, and just no flex. If you have a good powerful reel, you can do that. You don't need the 2-speed. And if you want more power, you can get these things with a longer crank arm, and you have just a ton of leverage on them. So that's in my opinion anyway. I see guys go out still going fishing for tuna and stuff like that in their kayaks with giant gear, and it's just so heavy. It's more fatiguing for you, and it's not really gaining you that much of an advantage because you just can't put that much pressure on the fish. You're in a kayak. The kayak just moves. I mean, you saw, I said, that tuna you had next to your boat, Paul, its tail's beating and it was just motoring you along.
Yeah, it was. It was like a outboard.
Lost Horizon. And I appreciate it. All you guys who are asking these questions and sticking around. How insane was that tuna? That tuna was insane. And like I said, you could see I could barely stand up after the fact. Barbara, thanks. That was fun. Thanks for joining us, Barbara. It's so good to see you on here. I'm not sure where you're at anymore, out in Arizona or Texas or something. Dwayne, how does the Prowler compare to the Kraken? Well, the original Prowler, of course, was the first boat I worked on for Ocean Kayak. The boats we were in there were the Tridents, or the Prowler Trident as it became known. Of course, our designs on the Kraken came from what we learned on the Trident. Trident being a little bit narrower, a little bit faster, but again, not quite as much volume. The biggest difference being that insanely comfortable seat in the Krakens, and then the ability to do your bait tank with a bait tank scupper that we put into it. So, with each boat, I think there's a little bit of improvements, moving over to Jackson Kayak and having that high-low seating, or not, that's not a high-low seat in that one, but the beach chair style seating. I don't know that I would ever want to go back to having sitting on the plastic on the bottom of a boat again.
No. Although it was nice to be more in touch with the boat, with the seat on the deck for some of those places we went.
Oh yeah. For that really mixed up boiler rock type of area. Yeah. The lower you are, the more contact you have with the kayak, the more control you have over the kayak. And it certainly is a lot more comfortable, stability wise. Although the Kraken's super stable, just that feeling. I watched a video the other day of guys landing their kayaks in the surf, and pretty much every one of them ate it, and every one of them was in a Hobie. And
it's because they just don't have the experience.
Yeah, they don't paddle, so they don't learn bracing techniques or anything like that. And it was just like one crash after another. It was pretty interesting. Dave, I have my SGN on a 7-foot Therese rod. What do you like better and why? Well, again, I mean, that 7-foot Therese is fine for a trolling type setup, for tossing. for the medium-sized fish. That's fine. It's when you get into these big fish like that, get straight down on you and really hurt you, is when you start going, hey, you know what? A 6-foot rod would be a lot nicer. Something a little more parabolic. The rods I use are from Century rods nowadays, and they're all acid wrapped, so you don't tend to get as much twist on the rod, and just super comfortable. The Century rods are a bit spendy, but the amazing pulling power for such a stupid light rod is amazing. Barbara moved to Austin, Texas, to Idaho to be near. So you went from Austin and then you went to Idaho now. Okay. Because that's where I thought you had moved to Texas. So anyway, it's great to hear from you, Barbara. And you miss fishing La Jolla and the bays. You know what? We all do.
Yeah.
So anyway, Paul, I really appreciate you joining me here today. That was a lot of fun reliving those memories. And I wish you all the luck, and I hope things get back to normal and you can start having a little bit more to write about in Western Outdoor News.
Heck, I want to pull on a fish at this point. It's been months.
Yeah, and I've seen some reports that there are some fish offshore, and but we can't even launch our boats and can't launch our kayaks. So hopefully soon enough. Anyway, Paul, I will let you go, and I know you need to get back to work. So thanks again, brother, and hopefully we can have another adventure like this once everything clears up.
All right, thanks for having me. Bye.
Right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. I do appreciate it. If you have any more questions, we are always happy to answer questions, and this is all about having a good time. So if and when you can get back out on the water, please remember, always wear your PFD. Not like I said, I wasn't wearing mine in this episode, but please remember to wear your PFD and keep your paddle right side up. You all take care. Remember, we'll be back next Tuesday with more of the Jackson Kayak episodes. Take care.
Word to the wise, if your mama ain't taught you, don't stand in front of a man and a fish he ain't caught yet. Honey, if the world calls me, tell him I'm fishing. I'm going fishing. Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Wouldn't you like to? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Wouldn't you like to know? I'm going fishing.